Hello mate, and welcome to another exciting video. In this one we are going to continue with our VN style engine game type thing in Unity, and we're going to jump straight into some code. The first thing that we've done is we've created a character class, and using our testing script, which we've got just here, we have created a character, and we've tested that that character was created by using debug.log. And this is fine, but it's not going to be much use to us because we're creating the character within our testing script and we aren't passing any information to our game yet. So what I'm going to do is we're going to create a new file, and I'm just going to go straight in, create a new C# script, and I'm just going to call this input decoder. And without any hesitation whatsoever, I'm going to jump straight into editing that script, and as you can see we've got a whole bunch of stuff here that we don't currently need, so we'll get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of the monobehavior statement at the end. That's entirely not what I wanted to do. Thank you very much. Cool. Right, we also need to include some more libraries, so we're going to we need system for a start. We also need system.text.regular expressions. So we might use that in this episode, we might use it further down the line. And we're also going to need Unity engine.ui. That's going to be for when we add images and stuff like that, and when we start putting the text on the screen rather than just using the debug. In fact, I'm going to include system.io as well, because we're probably going to end up using that further down the line. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is create a public static list, and we're going to make it a list of characters, and we'll call it character list equals new list character. Boom. Okay, so now we have created a list of characters that's going to be included in our input decoder, which is kind of like this is going to be the central nervous system of our game. This is going to be where the thing that decodes all of the things that we input into it and creates or displays text or whatever. So we're going to quickly save that as give our code a chance to load in. Cool, happy days. Right, next thing I want to do is create a new public static void, which means it has no return type, and it helps if we spell static correctly. You'd think an engineer would be able to do that. Pass input line, and it's going to receive a string. I'm going to just call it string to pass. There we go. So this is going to be the method that our code is going to use to basically convert whatever we send in, whatever command we send into the input decoder via the pass input line method. It's going to turn that into, it's going to send basically the code to a method that does what we want it to do. So for example, if I were to say show an image file, this would receive that command, make some sense of it, because bear in mind that what we're sending to it is just a string of text. It's not a command. This is not a command line interpreter code. So we need to convert it into something that we can actually utilize. So the first thing I want to do is actually pass text commands, or rather say statements, because that is really the fundamental part of our visual novel, the text, and then obviously images. So we've got characters. Now we need to have the ability for those characters to actually say something. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove tabs from the commands, because people may put tabs in their script files to be able to make sense of what they're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to strip all of those out, so that all we have left is the commands. So we've got a strip, and then we're going to go string to pass dot replace. So we're going to replace those tabs. Now, in order to tell Unity that we want to get rid of all of the tabs, we're going to say \t, and then we're just going to replace it with an empty string like so. Nice and easy, nothing too strenuous. And string without tabs, string to pass replaced. Yes, cool. Now we're going to say string to pass equals without tabs. There we go. Nothing too stressful there. So what error we're seeing at the moment is that it's expecting a colon, and that's because I haven't put an equal symbol in here. There we go. That'll fix that error. Nice and simple. So little typos, easy to make things bad. Okay. So now what I want to do is the first thing is to just tell Unity if we just see a text command or some text in speech marks, all we want Unity to do is just throw that out as a say statement. So all we're going to do is say if string to pass dot starts with open brackets, open speech marks, and then add another speech mark there, and then we will say, so add another speech mark there. Silly me. Right, let's get rid of that. I hate that when the editor does that. I like my... Why has that done that? What's going on? Oh, right, I need to add another. There we go. Oh my god, it's all gone horribly wrong. Right, so this one corresponds to that one. That one corresponds to that one. It's easy for the editor. Sometimes the editor is smarter than is too smart for its own good, and we end up getting pickled in a pickle. So we're going to create a method called say, and then we're just going to feed string to pass into that. Nice and easy. We haven't actually got a method called say yet, so what I'll do is after here I will just go public say string pass. There we go. So now we've created our, and we need to say public void, otherwise that's going to expect a return type, and we also need to make it static. There we go. Cool. Public static void string say. So now what we got is a method for when we only feed in one string. We're going to create a second method for when we have two strings. So we'll say public static void say. We're going to say string who and string what. For those of you who've used ren'py and gone into the say screen, you'll recognize this kind of a bit. Only we have two constructors for the say statement here because we don't want to. I mean, we could just have one where we feed in a string and a null. So where it says who, we just feed in null and then we check if that equals null. It's not the end of the world if we do that. It's entirely up to you. How that would look would be something like this: null, comma, string to pass, and then we would just say if who equals null, then do something slightly different. But it's up to you how you want to do it. I mean, this method is, there's no good or bad. It's 6 and 2 3s how you do it. You decide. You decide. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have two separate methods, one for printing just the text and one for printing the text with a name. Nice and easy. Cool. So also now what we want to do is, before we go off writing these methods, we actually need to do some more work. So what we have to do is say string. Now it's going to be an array of strings called separating strings equals, and we're going to open some curly braces there. Now I'm just going to throw in a random selection of special characters, And there's a reason that I'm doing this, and it will become more apparent momentarily. And we'll go with that. And we'll go with that. And I think that'll cover it. Oh my god. Right, cool. So what I've done there is I've created a list of strings that we're going to use to separate out. These are all the things, the identifiers that are going to be used to separate words from each other within our string when we parse it. So if there is a space, if there is a single quote mark, if there is a speech mark, if there is an open bracket or a closing bracket, those will be removed from our string, and they will be, and the words between them will basically be separated out. So now we create a let's have a think. Another string called args, arguments, and we're just going to say string to parse dot split, and we're going to split it using separating string, and we're going to change our string split options to remove hello, what's going on? Oh, it's a dot, sorry, silly me. Remove empty entries. There we go. Happy days. Nice and easy, nothing too stressful there. And I believe that's everything we need for that statement. String args, string to parse dot split, separating string, comma. Yes. Happy days. Okay, moving on to the next one. We can double check convert type string. That's because that is also meant to be an array. There we go. The error is gone. Happy days. Right, so now we're going to say for each character in, oh, let me say character in our character list. We're going to cycle through all of our characters, and we're going to check if the first word of our argument. So we've fed in our string, our command, into an array. Every word in our command. So for example, if we were in our testing script and I'd written E and then in speech marks whatever I wanted that character to say, it's separated out every single word into an individual part or an individual arg in this array. We're checking whether the first one corresponds to the short name of our character or one of our characters in our list. And if it does, then we're going to tell our visual novel engine to say it with that person's full name as the name that's displayed. Hopefully you understand my explanation there. I'm not sure I can make it any simpler than that. So hopefully as we progress, this will become more apparent. So we're saying if that equals character dot short name, then we're going to split to say. We need to create another method which is going to split our text up into something that our say method can utilize. And we're going to say, first I think we'll say a string to parse, and also the character name, or rather just the character object. Coolio. Right, so now we need to write another method. So the first thing we want to do, in fact, I'm going to create a region here because this area of the code is going to get messy otherwise. So we're going to create a region and we'll call this say stuff. Say without the S, stuff, and then at the end of these two methods, I'm just going to put end region in there, and then we can minimize that area as much as we want. So now we want to do another public static void split to say, and we said that we were going to input a string, which is going to be a string to parse. I'm just using the same temporary variable name for each method. You don't have to. You could call this string whatever you wanted to, and then we're going to receive a character, and then whatever is in the method. Sweet. Okay, so now that's got rid of that error up there because we are sending it to a method. Right, so I'm going to quickly summarize what we've done so far, just so that you don't get completely lost. we have received a string. We've called parse input line method from our test script and we've sent it a string. That string may consist of the command e open quotation marks and a statement to say. It might be character, defining a character. It might be telling us to show an image. What we are doing is we're writing a code to turn that string into some kind of sense that we can do something with. So the first thing we've done is we've said that if we just receive a line here that opens with a speech mark, we're going to say whatever is in those quotation marks. Nice and simple. What we're now doing is we're saying that if we receive a line of code here, what we're doing is we're saying if we receive a line of code that begins with a character's short name, if you remember when we create our characters, we have the short name and then we have the long name, then what we're going to do is we're going to split that string up into something that we can actually show on the screen. So we're going to remove all of the special characters and we're just going to show the text that we want it to say. Nothing too stressful there. Coolio. Now we need to actually remove the stuff that we don't want. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an integer and we're going to call it the to quote. And we'll say that's going to be string to parse dot, and now we need to find the closing quotation mark. No, we don't. We need to find the opening quotation mark. I stand corrected. So we're going to say index of, we're finding the index of the opening quotation mark, i.e. which number character in our string is where we want to start. So if you imagine, I'm going to come down the bottom here and I'm just going to do a quick demonstration. So if I receive a string that says this, all I want to show is the text between the quotation marks. However, bear in mind that our string doesn't just have that in it, it also has something like that. No, we don't want else. Get rid of the E. Our command is going to read something like this. We don't know how many characters they've used for the character short name, because that also might say Elaine in there as well. So we can't just say the first or fifth or whatever character. So what we're doing is we are searching our string for which number character that opening speech mark is, and then we're adding 1 to it. So we're going to say index of that plus 1. So that now we know that our string starts on the G of gobbledygook and not any of this nonsense before it. Okay? Happy days. Oops. Now, next thing we need to do is say int end quote equals string to parse dot length -1, because we don't want the end speech mark, do we? We just want to get the words in there. So we've now defined where our string starts and where our string ends. Nice and simple. Now we're going to say string to output equals string to parse substring. So we're finding our string within a string. We need to put a dot in there as well. Dot substring, which starts at to quote end, and the quote length. This is not the end character, this is the length of the quote. So we're going to say end quote minus to quote, and that gives us the length of the string that we want to display. So now we've got a string to output which only contains the characters from this statement that we actually want to output. Now we call our say, we input character dot full name, that's the who, and now we're going to say string to output, that's the what. Happy days. So now you understand why we have a constructor which receives a who and a what, because we've actually fed into it a who and a what with minimal code, really. That's not overly complex way of doing what we've done. We've just taken our quote and we have cracked on and separated it out from all the extra bump, and now we are good. And we've also already fed our character in from our previous pass so we know which character is talking, and all we've done is we've taken the full name of that character from its properties and we've fed that in as well. So now we need to actually create, for now, a debug log statement. So we're just going to say in here debug.log, and we're going to say who plus colon space plus what. Nothing too complicated there. And then in this case, I'm going to get rid of string to pass, and I'm just going to change that to what, just so that we don't get overly confused. And in here, debug.log what. So there we go. Nothing too strenuous there, is there? So now we need to go back into our testing code, and we need to actually change some stuff. So first thing we need to do is we actually need to create a character in our character list. So we're actually going to call input decoder dot character list, and we're going to change this to dot add, put some brackets, and end our statement with some brackets as well. So now we're creating a new character inside the character list rather than outside here. So what we want to do is delete this stuff, save it. Let's just check that this runs, otherwise we're going to have other problems. So we'll just quickly run this. Nice and simple. We've created a character within our character list in the input decoder, and we have no errors coming up. So far so good. Next thing I want to do is, I'm just going to do it in our start because we don't want to do it over and over again. I'm going to create a string. In fact, I'm going to do it at the top here. In fact, I can get rid of this because we don't use that anymore. So I'm just going to say public string input line. It's just going to be a string that we're just going to reutilize over and over again to feed commands into our input decoder. So the first thing I want to do is say input line equals, and we're going to say e. This is some text. Oh yeah, I need to actually use the special characters because obviously in our text editor, when we're actually creating our script files, we won't need to do this. But in order to put speech marks inside a string, when we're declaring a string, we have to put a backslash before it. They call it escaping the speech mark. So that, as you can see, the innermost and the outermost speech marks, the first and the last ones, are now considered to be the speech marks that define the string. And the speech marks that we have inside the string are considered to be part of the string itself. Hopefully I didn't say string too many times there. You'll soon let me know in the comments if I do. Right, now we need to actually call our input decoder. So we're going to say parse input line, and we're just going to say input line. Groovy. Right, assuming that I haven't made any typos, this should run. So if I just run that, and we come to our console, there you go. I typed in the command E, and then speech marks, this is some text, and the output from our say is Eileen : this is some text. So hopefully now you can start to see our input decoder is doing what we want it to do. All I have to do in this and this is when we create our UI, all we have to do is tell the UI what text to display in each screen. In this case, it will just say the text in the dialog box, and in this case it will say the text that we want to say in the dialog box, but it will also put the who into the nameplate. Obviously it won't do it in this format. We'll have to say the nameplate, identify the nameplate and tell it what text to put in it, and then do it with our dialog box as well. But for testing purposes, until we've actually created our user interface, we now have effectively a functioning way to convert this command here or any variation of it. Bear in mind that we can just create more characters if we want to. We're actually going to, in the next video, set our input decoder to be able to pass a command which creates a new character. instead of doing it in the testing script. So yeah, hope you found that useful, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm sure you will, and I will see you in the next one. But until then, you take damn good care of yourselves, all right? Bye-bye.